Hello and good morning to our listeners from around the world. I want to welcome you again to another edition of This Morning with Soulivity, broadcasting live from our studio right here in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, and on KMET 1490 AM radio in Southern California. My name is Brian Wesley Johnson, and of course, I am so glad you're here with us because we have another great conversation that's going to empower you today. I'm joined today by my very special friends, Sheila Applegate and Dr. Chanel DeGuzman. Hello, ladies. How are you?
Hello. Good morning.
I've kind of missed you guys being together. I mean, it's so long.
A
I
whole week.
know. It's been a whole week. I was saying the exact same thing, Brian. I missed you guys.
Well, so much to talk about today. But before we get started, I want to remind our listeners that listen, we want your questions, comments, and thoughts. This is an interactive kind of conversation. So if you're listening to us live on either Facebook or YouTube, just post directly into those chats and we'll do shout outs to you. We'll get your thoughts up on our screen so we can be shared with other people around the world. Um, Ladies, we're talking today about taking eating disorders seriously. Um, this is an important topic. We don't talk enough about it. And I wanted to frame our first segment with these words from Sarah Hartley, who is the editor in chief of the Kindred Voice. Just bear with me. This is a little long, but I think I'll be able to get through it fairly quickly. At least 30 million people of all ages and genders suffer from an eating disorder in the United States. Eating disorders are a mental illness, something that so many women struggle with, but somehow it doesn't get talked about quite as much. Eating disorders like anorexia, bulimia, binge eating disorder, pica, they all revolve around food in some way. Seeing as humans literally can't live without food, I can't imagine how hard it must be to navigate that struggle every single day, several times a day. But one thing I do know, the patience, strength, and perseverance from those dealing with and in recovery from eating disorders is awe inspiring. Talking openly and honestly about this topic helps so many of us, not only those going through eating disorders, but also their loved ones. We see you and we're here for you all. Wow. So I just wanted to start with that and kind of frame this. Um, Again, this is an important topic. I'll start by kind of asking both of you, have you or a loved one been affected by a disorder? I mean, this eating disorder? And I'll go to
Uh,
you, Dr. Chanel, first.
Sure. Thank you, Brian. I will tell you in my direct circle, I don't have experience or I'm not affected directly in my immediate circle.
Mhm.
But as I was preparing for this topic, I did go back into my high school and my actually, then it was called junior high
Mhm.
experience, Brian. And my girlfriend and we were on the thinner side
Mhm.
and actually in reverse. We wanted to gain weight because if you were too thin and not developed, you got picked on, you got
Right.
bullied. Can you believe it? Even in sixth grade, I
Yeah.
was bullied by boys because I wasn't developed. I didn't have, developed breast yet or curves yet, like some of the other girls. And I literally remember being punched by one of the boys because of my weight, meaning I didn't have enough of it. And so
Mhm.
my girlfriend and we would race home after school to eat baked potatoes, thinking that help
Mm.
us to gain weight. So when you think about food, yes, it touches every area of our life and it influences us in ways that, some of us cannot even imagine. Now, I was not harmed by that, Sheila, but that drove us to try to gain weight because we felt
Mhm.
the pressure, we felt the stigma, and I took the blows
Mm.
from boys for not being developed yet. So it can happen either being, overweight or perhaps underweight.
Wow. Wow. Sheila, what about you?
Well, I think that's an important point to make, Dr. Chanel, because we think of people who have eating disorders as being overweight, and
Right.
a lot of times it's the exact opposite. The people that you aren't looking about their weight at that do have the disorders. And there is shaming from both sides. It's interesting that you said that because it was actually a few weeks ago. I had this memory of being in 5th grade on the school bus on a really hot day, and I had tied my shirt up like they used to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the boys,
Yeah.
like, made some comment about my stomach, and I was like, "How am I remembering that all these years later?"
Yes,
But
yes.
Wow.
those images just stick with us. So,
Mhm.
um, in the same way, I don't have anyone right now in my inner circle that I actively know has an eating disorder, and if I did, I probably wouldn't announce that on national TV.
Right, right,
But,
right.
um, but throughout my career and personal life, I do know that I've known people and worked with people who have had eating disorders.
Mhm.
You know, again, I'm glad that we're talking about this today. You know, I've been so blessed to have the women and men in my life, um, that were about acceptance, like total acceptance. Even, that was
Mhm.
part of their journey.
Mhm.
And I remember how my dad and my mom would get so angry at,
Mhm,
you know, these put forth definitions of what beauty and you know and health is supposed to look like,
mhm,
and remembering all the young women that I went to school with that were all desperately trying to seek that level of beauty.
Mhm. Mhm.
And even though I don't think that they might have thought that they were either having a eating disorder or were on the verge of that, they were definitely heading in that direction.
Right.
From you know, not eating when they're hungry, or or other things like that, um,
Yeah.
or forcibly, starving themselves. I mean,
Mhm.
just so many different things. And so
Yeah.
this pulls some heartstrings, because how do you create a best life for yourself if what you believe about yourself begins with "I'm not enough,"
mhm.
Mhm.
or "I don't deserve to be loved the way that I am in this moment,
Right.
because I don't look like this," you know?
Right. Well, Brian, you know that I have a 14-year-old girl. I almost started to
Mhm.
say a little girl, but I have a 14-year-old daughter.
Right.
And fortunately, we don't see any signs of eating disorder or anything like that. But because I keep my ears to the grindstone,
Right.
I also get a chance to visit in the school. I
Mhm.
mean, I know of occurrences in the school of girls, skipping meals.
Yeah.
Um, I
Yeah.
know some of them have eating disorders. Um, it's a it's a national problem, and there's just pressure. There's
Right.
pressure to look a certain way
Right.
for that for acceptance. So it's not even so much about the self-acceptance, because we're looking outside of ourselves for the validation and trying to fit an image of what's projected upon us
Right.
externally, and we assume that internally, and then we start to adjust our behavior to fit that model.
Right.
And
Right.
so I definitely know in our schools, this is a serious problem. And even if it doesn't escalate to, you know, the full-blown anorexia or bulimia, we know that the girls, and perhaps some of the guys, do skip
Mhm.
meals, do diet. That whole
Right. Right.
dieting thing, we haven't even touched the surface
Oh
on
my
that, right?
gosh. Oh, right. Golly.
I'm glad that you mentioned the guys too, because I think it's really important that this crosses all genders.
Yes.
And sometimes people who are not in the female, identifying female gender are even more likely to be unseen in these situations because of our assumption of the pressure put on women rather than men. You know, for men, for boys and men, sometimes it's not having enough muscle or bulking up or,
Right.
Yes.
you know, we're too heavy. Like, you know, they've
Mhm.
received the same pressure. And I think that's just important to know.
You know, I'm
Yeah.
thinking as we're moving into the close of the first segment here, I was thinking about um, This Is Us, award-winning TV
Mhm.
series. I wish was still on because I miss it so much. Um, where you had two women that were well, it's where two of the characters met in the 12-step program for eating disorders.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And the one girl who was thin, she was the only quote unquote thin one in that group.
Right.
And everybody was like, well, what are you doing here? And why are you
Right.
part of this? And
Mhm.
that kind of thing. And come to find out that no, she was she did have an eating disorder, and that she was like forcibly, vomiting me and bulimia. I mean, she was actually
Mhm.
purging herself to
Mhm.
because she thought that she was too like she wasn't perfect, that her body wasn't the way that it
Mhm.
should be.
Mhm.
And I just thought that that was so interesting because it's showing all these different sides of this, that again, it's all genders, it's people of all shapes and sizes, and it has
Mhm.
nothing to do with your weight. Like
Right.
Right.
it has to do with a mental state, that because this is a mental illness and it should be treated as such, you know.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, Brian, what I learned in looking at this is that eating disorders are the second leading cause of death from mental illness in the US after opioid
Wow.
use disorder.
Wow.
That's
Wow.
pretty alarming. That
Yeah.
is
Wow.
pretty alarming.
Wow.
Mhm.
Wow.
And you
Wow.
and I were talking, Brian, it's the mental health leading to depression, and the depression increases the risk of suicide, and that's the pain.
Right. Right. Well, listen, we're going to take a short break, but I wanted to make sure that for those of you who wanted more information or even trying to seek support, there is a hotline that is available from the National Eating Disorders Association, or NEDA. That's available. You can call or text. We're actually putting it up on our site right now. It's 1-800-931-2237. Please check out the website for specific hours that you can reach to them. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to be talking more about this in the next segment. So just hang tight and we'll be back in, about 2 minutes.
Have you ever asked the question, if I was to be anything, what would I be? Regardless of money, regardless of status, beyond popularity and fame. Living your passion, feeling your life has purpose. Soulivity is a space to nurture that which lives in all of us. A place where work can become play, and doing what we love creates the dreams of a lifetime.
Are you ready to take that first step towards true, unwavering inner happiness? Are you like thousands of people who have everything they need, not want, but need, and still can't seem to find happiness and fulfillment in their lives? If so, the Steps to Happiness show is for you. On my show, you will learn about the principles and practices that lead to true inner happiness. Because guess what? isn't found in our external environment, but within ourselves instead. Together with my guests, we will explore the latest physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being practices, and together we'll advise you on the actionable steps you can take towards a happier, more fulfilled, authentic life. So I invite you to join me each week on Soulivity TV on the Steps to Happiness show with me, Teresa Greco.
And we're back with more of This Morning with Soulivity. I'm joined by my beautiful host, Dr. Chanel DeGuzman and Sheila Applegate, and we are talking about taking eating disorders seriously. And Sheila, you had a very great idea about maybe we need to additionally frame this where people understand what the definition of mental illness is. And so I'm going to hand it over to you for that.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. I was just thinking, as we talked in the first segment, we referenced this as a mental illness, and our intention is to take the stigma away and help you understand that what that means is that there's underlying emotions and belief patterns that are influencing this behavior. So I think people are accepting mental illness as something that is natural now, but it's also important for those of you who may still not understand that that is not a phrase to say that you're sick or you have something wrong with you mentally, that it's really just saying that this is a diagnosis in the DSM-4 or 5, and that it's a way of treating you and understanding the full spectrum of why it's happening.
Right. Thank you for that. Let's talk a little bit about body shaming here, because do we first believe, Dr. Chanel, that internal and external body shaming plays a role in this?
Yes, Brian, absolutely. So, like Sheila, let's start with framing what body shaming is. It's also called fat shaming,
Yeah.
I think. So it's criticizing or harassing overweight people about their weight to make them feel ashamed. So criticizing and harassing overweight people, when I think about that, that just feels so bad, right? That people would actively take on a mission. And I understand, Sheila and Brian, that there are online communities in this, and they do it in a very vicious way. But the thing is that fat shaming really has the opposite effect. So even maybe perhaps well-intending, let's say grandmas, for example, can get on people or women, especially about their weight or their eating habits, or maybe you're not exercising enough. But what that does is it just makes that person feel more ashamed, which then makes them want to eat more,
Right.
which has them to gain more weight. And so you can see the vicious cycle that fat shaming causes. It causes psychological and physical harm. And it's very, very sad, right, for
Yeah.
us to hear this. But it's a very active phenomenon that happens, I'm sure, especially in schools, I would imagine, on a pretty regular basis.
When I was younger, I was very much, well, I'm still into photography, but I was really into photography when I was younger. And part of that was always looking at, fashion magazines and other articles for ideas about how to take pictures. And what was the unintended, I would say, no, not the unintended, because there was some intended consequences in this, but the images of what, specifically for women, what a woman's body is supposed to look like, right, is so pervasive in our society, right, that people buy into, oh, well, if you're not like that, then you're the other now, right?
Mhm.
And then especially now, I mean, we're going to be talking about social media in a minute, but now with the information age, where part of that is, video and additional photographs and images and selfies and all this kind of stuff, where that underlying nasty, prejudicial, and discriminatory kind of thought process about what is beauty, right? How do we define beauty? How do we define what's okay? And that women are born into this situation, and men too, because men also have an active role to play in
Mhm.
all this,
Mhm.
where if you don't look a certain way, you're not desirable, or that you don't need to be loved. I mean, people can internalize that. And so I just wanted to kind of bring that part up in here too, because this isn't just, oh, this just came out of nowhere.
No,
Right.
no, absolutely not.
Yeah, it goes way back in history that on how far eating disorders have been. And then also just coming from every direction. Dr. Chanel, also what you were saying about the body shaming, I think it is so important to understand that that comes in so many different ways.
Mhm.
And it really does go, it isn't, I know you know this, but just to emphasize for everybody that it isn't just fat shaming. I mean, that is the most common, and that's
Right.
because of our society's beliefs right now about
Right.
what is beautiful.
Mhm.
But like you experienced it when you were young, it was for being
Mhm.
skinny, or
Mhm.
a male for not having muscles, or whatever it is. It's, and what we think is the standard and not the standard, it can come from any direction.
Right.
Absolutely.
And it gets internalized.
Oh, absolutely. Do you guys remember the scene on the movie Why Did I Get Married with Jill Scott? And her and her husband were boarding a plane, and she couldn't sit in the seat. I don't think she fit in the seat. And he publicly shamed her in front of everyone
Right.
on that
Mhm.
scene. Do you all
Right.
remember that?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It's heartbreaking.
Oh yeah. And
It was heartbreaking.
in front of his mistress,
In front of his mistress.
who he was
And
comparing her to.
exactly, exactly. I think Sheila and Brian, both to your points, I think men or the opposite sex in that relationship sometimes contribute to the way, women feel about themselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Why don't we continue this? Again, there's a lot more to talk about in terms of this. I have a comment about that I want to kind of bring up. We'll save it to the next segment. We'll also talk about social media. How does social media play a role in all of this? So listen, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in about 2 minutes, everybody. We're talking more about taking eating disorders seriously. We'll be back. Hey there, this is Brian with Soulivity.com. I want to share some exciting news about our new Aspire Academy by Soulivity. Now, you probably want to know what the Aspire Academy by Soulivity is. Well, it exclusively connects you with people around the globe and who share the intense desire to improve themselves and create a better life for themselves today. There's classes, there's workshops, there's live events, and even more exclusively just for you. You see, I wanted you to have a safe space where you could grow, you can learn, and it would empower you in all aspects of your life, including your mind, your body, and your soul. So how do you get started? Well, it is so easy. First of all, the best part, joining Aspire Academy is absolutely free. Just click on the Join Now button, sign up, and begin your journey. As a special part of this invitation to you, there are some free courses that are available for you to try from our amazing roster of coaches and collaborators. It's our way of saying thank you for all of your support and being with us along our journey of expansion. I hope you enjoyed the Aspire Academy by Soulivity today. Start the process. Learn more about your passion, your purpose, and how to live a higher quality life. And we're back with more of This Morning with Soulivity. We're talking about eating disorders this morning. Dr. Chanel, when we ended the last segment, you were talking about a scene from the movie Why Did I Get Married? That featured Jill Scott. I can't remember the gentleman's name in terms of the actor, but there was a scene where they were on a plane. They were trying to get to Colorado, I believe, for a winter vacation. And he basically body shamed her in front of his mistress because of her weight and the seat that she was trying to get into.
Right. So he made her drive there.
Yes,
Right?
yes. He said, "Here's the keys to the car. Why don't you just drive?" And I mean, it was cross country, y'all. I mean, this was from California, I believe, all the way there. And as a man, as a husband, I just want to emphatically say that scene is emblematic of many men in our country who believe that that's okay. It is not okay. I just want to say that first and foremost. There are reasons behind it. Men are socialized to believe in certain things that aren't cool, and we need to change it. Men need to get educated. They need to grow and break this cycle themselves of objectifying women, because that's where that's at its core. That's what we're talking about. And so, men, what are we going to do here? Are we going to keep supporting a cycle where 30 million people, specifically a lot of them are women, where they're not only suffering but they're dying as well? This is a illness that leads to suicide and other complications that lead to eventually death. And so we're going to be what are we going to do about that?
Right. And Brian, even if it's not, explicit and to the point where he, shamed her publicly, Jill Scott in the movie. I mean, people do this also in subtle ways, like we talked about earlier.
Oh, yeah.
Shouldn't
Right.
you,
Oh,
exercise some more? Or are you sure you should be eating those cookies? So we
Yeah.
get these messages all the time, right?
Mhm.
Right.
And sometimes, from the people we love, and we don't always know what the harm that it's actually causing.
I was thinking about some of the older movies, or even some of the newer movies where the mother is talking to the daughter, and it's kind of like, well, you'll never get a husband if
Right.
you look like that, right?
Right.
And all that. I mean, it's just, we got to stop this. This is just, I look at it as insanity, really. It's insane that we're actually treating each other this way.
Yeah.
You
And
know.
it's very serious, Brian, because I also do work on implicit bias. And so one of the biases that the Harvard Implicit Bias Association tests point out, that as a society, and this is obvious, but as a society, we do prefer thin people over overweight people. But what that leads to is bias, sometimes, unconscious bias, where our hiring practices,
Hmm.
whether you're going to get on a team, whether you're going to be recruited, there's all sorts of not only societal, but then economic factors that play into this as a result of the discrimination that perhaps overweight people experience. So it does cut through on multiple levels.
Right, right. And, as we were saying before around, this cuts both ways, right? Where the weight part of this is not the issue. It's society putting forth what they believe is okay, for what a woman's body is supposed to look like or to be accepted and loved. And now with the information age, this gets blown up even more, right? There's a story from the NBC News back in June of last year about a family that had to sue Meta because this young girl was on Instagram, and without her parents' knowledge, she was posting all this information and content that was glorifying anorexia and self-cutting, um, and that kind of thing. And now now that she got a hold, not that she is now has an eating disorder, as she was doing this, she's suffering from depression, anxiety, and anorexia now.
Yeah. The influence of social media is just, beyond what we really do know, because we're not all the way into all of the different channels that especially our young people are in.
Right.
But again, I think we touched upon this last week, you guys, is that people post the most beautiful, doctored up images possible.
Right.
And then everybody has to up the ante to come out and look even more pretty, more, fit than the next person, the last photo, right?
Right. Right. One correction on this story really quickly. Their complaint was that Instagram's artificial intelligence engine
Right. That's what I was
steered her toward all this information, not that she was into it. So I
right.
want to make
And
that
I think,
correction.
yeah, that's such an important part because it is the algorithms that are determining, because on social media, we also have a lot of body positive movement going on, and people finding others that they can feel natural with,
Right.
and be themselves. So I think there's a whole other side to social media that is hopeful.
Absolutely. And so we're going to take another quick break, but before we leave, we want to make sure that you have some support. If you know of someone that is battling a eating disorder, or you yourself are suspect that you may be moving in that direction, please use the NEDA helpline. That's the National Eating Disorders Association helpline at 1-800-931-2237. Please refer to the website for the hours of its operation. Again, you can call or text this number. I think it's a great, great, great tool. Listen, when we come back, we're going to make a turn. We're going to turn to, looking at what are some of the tips that people who are either suffering from an eating disorder or know of somebody that is, that they can use today. So we'll be back in about 2 minutes.
Hi there, Sheila Applegate here with some exciting news. I've joined the incredible Soulivity team as the host of the new Consciously Awesome live show, where I will be sharing insights to help you discover your full brilliance and claim the vibrant life you deserve. So tune in every Wednesday right here on Soulivity TV to join the fun, and remember to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss a single episode. Have an awesome week, and I will see you on Wednesday.
Have you ever asked the question, if I was to be anything, what would I be? regardless of money, regardless of status, beyond popularity and fame. Living your passion, feeling your life has purpose. Soulivity is a space to nurture that which lives in all of us. A place where work can become play, and doing what we love creates the dreams of a lifetime.
And we're back with more of This Morning with Soulivity. We're talking about taking eating disorders seriously. I'm joined by my beautiful co-host, Dr. Chanel DeGuzman and Sheila Applegate. And we wanted to end this show with some tips about how to support our loved ones. And I just want to read something from the National Eating Disorder Association from their how-tos. And it says, friends and family often key to encouraging loved ones with eating and or body image issues to seek help. Whether they are unaware that there is a problem, they are afraid or ashamed to seek help, or they are ambivalent about giving up their concerning behaviors. Many sufferers find it difficult to seek help. Friends and family can play an important role in identifying worrying symptoms to the sufferer and encouraging them to seek help. So this is something that all of us can play a role in supporting people to not only get help, but stop what I would call is this epidemic of bad behavior toward others. Dr. Chanel, what's something that you think that would be something good that would be of support to our loved ones that may be suffering from an eating disorder?
Sure, Brian. The one thing that really resonates with me right now is compassion.
Mm,
Compassion for and empathy for what other people might be going through that you probably don't really know the depth of whatever internal angst or depression, anxiety, whatever they might be going through, you really probably don't even know the extent. And so just having some understanding and some compassion and to watch our language, our well-intentioned language about calling attention to what people are eating or how much they're eating or
yeah.
if they're exercising or not. Those little messages compound and they accumulate over time, and that really does affect people internally. And I would also say for me, for an example, I'm increasing my awareness, Brian, about this
Mm,
topic so
mhm.
that I can better understand how I can support those who may not look like they're going through a eating disorder because of the way that they look. And that's one of the problems, actually. So just to continue to educate myself, and I would encourage our listeners and all of us to educate ourselves more about eating disorders so that we can be more compassionate and we can have honest dialogue about what's really going on so we can help people seek out the appropriate resources.
Mm, 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 mm. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. What about you, Sheila? What's some of the things that you're thinking of that would be supportive?
Well, Dr. Chanel, everything you said was great. And taking it further, I would say, to begin with, it's really being aware of our subtleties, our biases. Um, I try to not compliment people on their looks, but on their attributes, because we never know when we're feeding into
Right.
this misassociation of our, self-worth.
Mhm.
And really, yeah, for me, it's, my child said this to me on vacation recently when I didn't like some of the pictures that they took of me, that, I had an issue um, with pictures or my, being in, I don't remember what they said exactly, but, you know, when are we doing that? Like they thought I was beautiful. I was thinking, oh, is that something I would put on social media for my business? Like when are we,
Right, 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 right.
So how are we being influenced in the subtle ways? And then when we notice it in ourselves, change how we treat others, even in the broad spectrum. And really, because we talked about the algorithms, if you consciously start seeking out and liking and reposting some of the messages from the body positive movement, you're going to change your algorithms and you're going to present that to the people around you as well.
Right, right, right.
What about you, Brian?
So first and foremost, I mean, I agree with everything that both of you are saying, because I think that um, whether or not you personally have an eating disorder, or you know of someone that may be battling an eating disorder, that the work is from the inside out. It's always from the inside out, and that we do have to learn about as much as we can about it. It's why we're suggesting that you go to the National Eating Disorders Association. They have a wealth of information that's there. Um, um, I think, and Sheila, you just said something that I thought that I want to kind of expound upon, and that is what you decide that you are in terms of your beingness, you attract that to you. And so if you are a person that wants to support someone else in in battling their eating disorder, you have to learn to embody the compassion from the inside that you can actually give to someone else. So do the inner work that's necessary so that you make yourself available emotionally, spiritually, soulfully, to be able to support that person's journey, because it ain't about you, it's about them. Right?
Right. Yeah.
Perfectly
No.
said. Perfectly
Very
Right?
said.
simple.
And it's always an inside job, but I think what you're saying, as far as us trying to support those who are on a eating disorder journey, yes, we need internally to be available and to have that
Absolutely.
emotional capacity to show
Absolutely.
forth that compassion to really go
Absolutely.
deep enough to help other people.
And
Right.
I will say this too, to our brothers and sisters that are suffering from eating disorders. You are not alone.
Right.
You're not alone. It's in part why we're doing this show today. We want to support you in knowing that there's resources out here available for you that are discreet, like the NITA helpline that's here at 1-800-931-2237. This is something that is discreet, that you can seek support for, and that you can get the people and resources in your life to help you move forward. So listen, we're going to take another break. I wish we had more time to talk about this. Maybe we'll talk about it again in the near future. But we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll go into some final thoughts. Hey there, this is Brian with Soulivity.com. I want to share some exciting news about our new Aspire Academy by Soulivity. Now, you probably want to know what the Aspire Academy by Soulivity is. Well, it exclusively connects you with people around the globe and who share the intense desire to improve themselves and create a better life for themselves today. There's classes, there's workshops, there's live events, and even more exclusively just for you. You see, I wanted you to have a safe space where you could grow, you can learn, and it would empower you in all aspects of your life, including your mind, your body, and your soul. So how do you get started? Well, it is so easy. First of all, the best part, joining Aspire Academy is absolutely free. Just click on the Join Now button, sign up, and begin your journey. as a special part of this invitation to you, there are some free courses that are available for you to try from our amazing roster of coaches and collaborators. It's our way of saying thank you for all of your support and being with us along our journey of expansion. I hope you enjoyed the Aspire Academy by Soulivity today. Start the process. Learn more about your passion, your purpose, and how to live a higher quality life. And we're back with more of This Morning with Soulivity. And Dr. Chanel, I'm going to go to you first for some final thoughts.
Thank you, Brian. One thing I want to bring back around, I shared with you that I was bullied essentially in the 6th grade by 3 boys because they called it bony at the time. And I would actually get physically punched because of it. So many years later, Brian, when I became a full-fledged adult woman, female woman, right? I ran into one of the guys. And when he saw me, literally his jaw dropped. And he couldn't even come up with any words to say to me.
Wow.
And I just say that to say is that people are fickle and they put expectations on you.
Yeah.
So before I wasn't enough, and now all of a sudden I'm so this and you can't even respond to me, means that I cannot allow myself, and I hope others don't allow themselves to be judged, to be valued based on someone else's perception. And I know that's easier said than done. And there are resources that we can utilize to get us help, but that it all does start from that self-acceptance of you being enough, you being an I-10 at all times.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Sheila?
I want to speak to people who are either experiencing or questioning if they have an eating disorder or if a loved one has an eating disorder. And I just want to reiterate for you, this is not a matter of willpower. This is something that is deep rooted, that can be helped, and that getting the right services can help you. And similar to an addiction, we can't expect people to just will themselves out of this. And so any judgment you're putting on yourself or a loved one because they aren't controlling this, we need to take the next step in compassion to seek a deeper understanding.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. I think my final thought for today is I'm going to reiterate what Sarah Hartley said from the Kindred Voice, and that is, we see you and we're here for you all. Again, this subject doesn't get talked about enough. That's why we're doing it today, and we will continue to talk about this from time to time. I want to just put the hotline back up again for those of you who may want to seek support at the National Eating Disorders Association, their helpline, which is 800-931-2237. Powerful show, guys. Powerful show today.
Awesome. Great information.
Yeah. While we have some time, for those of you who may need some more assistance in their life, Dr. Chanel, you've got some pretty cool things that's happening with you. So why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely, Brian. I offer a coaching program that deals with some of these underlying issues, such as self-awareness, self-acceptance, self-empowerment, being able to advocate for yourself and have your own standard that you live by. And so I do that through a coaching chat that is complimentary. Just simply call and reach out to me, and we can set up time to talk and get at whatever is going on in your life and get you to that next level.
Excellent. Thank you. And Sheila, you've got some cool things happening. coming
I
up?
do. Yes, on the 8th of March, we will be doing a Matrix of Illumination on Soulivity's Aspire Academy. That's a wonderful time to have a meditation and receive message from Spirit. I also have a discount for people who are listening to this show for a soul connection session where I integrate my experience and knowledge as a clinical therapist, a meditation teacher, and a spiritual seer to help you move to your next step.
Fantastic. Oh man. Even more great things coming up with this morning with Soulivity. So keep it locked in. Listen, remember to follow us on social media. We're on all the social media channels. And also, if you go to our website at soulivity.com/this-morning, sign up for our mailing list because you'll be able to get access to exclusive content and be aware of things like giveaways that we're going to be doing in the very near future. In fact, we're probably going to be starting up some new giveaways next week. So you want to make sure that you're listening so you can get the thing. Listen, on behalf of all of us, I want to say thank you again for joining us for another great episode of This Morning with Soulivity. Dr. Chanel, Sheila, you are always awesome. Your insights, your insights specifically on today's topic, I think were, important for people to hear.
And yours too, Brian.
Yeah, this is a great team.
Yeah. Shall we do it next week?
We
Yeah.
We shall. Listen, I want to remind everybody that we've got great shows on Soulivity TV that you can watch at soulivity.com. Consciously Awesome every Wednesday with Sheila Applegate at 12 noon. And also as well, The Steps to Happiness with Teresa Greco at Thursdays at 12 noon. Listen, on behalf of everybody, again, thanks for joining us. We hope that you come back and join us every weekday at 8 a.m. Eastern for our live broadcast, or you can listen to our rebroadcast at 9 a.m. Pacific on KMET 1490 a.m. for all of you out on the West Coast. Until next time, keep having conversations that empower with passion and purpose and create a life of high quality living today. We'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
This work is subject to copyright owned by Affinity Global LLC. Any reproduction or republication of all or part of this is expressly prohibited unless Affinity Global LLC has explicitly granted its prior written consent. All other rights reserved.